And with all of your kind permission.
It's
Adonai Eloheinu v'Elokei Avotenu shelo yirad davar takala al yadi lo akashel b'dvar halacha ve'yismachu vi chaverai shelo amar al tameh tahor v'lo tahor tameh v'lo al mutar asur v'lo asur mutar lo yikashelu chaverai b'dvar halacha ve'esmach bahem ki Adonai yiten chochma mipiv dat u'tmuna gal einai ve'abita niflot mitoratecha. We will learn today, unfortunately, Lului Neshamot of all those members of Klal Yisrael who have perished so tragically and so violently and so needlessly in this past week, including at least one person overseas who was attacked and stabbed to death because he was a Jew. I grew up in a good liberal East Coast American milieu where everybody was, supposed to try to get along with everybody else. And the lessons of history over and over again seem to be that it just doesn't work that way. And here we are tragically facing yet another example. And people, because I'm a rabbi, people have asked me in the last few days, how do you pray at times like this? And, God forgive me, I've been honest with them and I've said it's very hard. It's very difficult. And how do we continue learning Torah at times like this? And the answer is it's very difficult. Excuse me. But as one of my teachers, Rabbi Isaac Landis, says every week when we begin our Gemara share, the future of the Jewish people and the future of the Jewish nation and the Medinat Israel and Am Yisrael will rest in large measure on the Torah that we learn, particularly at difficult times such as these. So I want to give us all a bracha for strength to be able to focus on, unfortunately, gamze avor, as bad as things get, the human history moves forward, moves side to side, it moves backward, but it moves. The moment that we're living through right now will not last forever, but the Torah does last forever. And Bezrat Hashem, with God's help, the Jewish people last forever. So we're blessed to be together here as a small part of the Jewish people, focusing on a small part of the eternal Torah. And may our Torah learning be a zchut for all of Klal Yisrael everywhere. We're on the 8th parak of Rambam Hilchot Teshuvah. We're coming down to the finish line, folks. We're at the very end of the last book of Sefer Madah, the first volume of the 14 books of Mishnah. And here in this parak, Rambam focuses on describing or discussing the notion of Olam Haba. And really, if we go all the way back to the beginning of Yesodei Torah, where Rambam tells us that the foundation and the beginning of all wisdom is to know that there is some cause out there. There's something that causes all of this to happen. He doesn't even say, if you remember in the first page, he doesn't even say it's God. He says there's something. Matsui Rishoni, first cause. It's only in I believe, the 4th paragraph at the beginning where he says, by the way, this Matsui Rishon is what the Torah and Tanakh calls God. And Rambam's whole project is that the way that we achieve eternity as individuals and as a people is through our connecting to God, through our knowledge of God. And the payoff is Olam Haba. And so here at the end of this long first Sefer of Mishneh Torah, we're now beginning to discuss Olam Haba. Says Rambam, the good that is hidden for the righteous is life of the world to come. This will be life which is not accompanied by death, and good which is not accompanied by evil. The Torah alludes to this in the promise, so that the good, lima'an yitav lach ve'achta yamim, that it will be good to you and your days will be lengthened. And the Torah Sheba'al Peh explains, lima'an yitav lach, that it will be good for you in la'olam shekulotov, in the world which is entirely good. Ve'achta yamim, and your days will be lengthened La'olam shekullo aroch, in the world which is completely lengthened, if you will, endlessly, eternal, which is olam haba, the world to come. And Bezrat Hashem, much later, as we continue with Rambam through the course of this coming year, we'll have opportunity to discuss in greater depth his concepts around different words that Tanakh uses to describe God. Excuse me, but the word life, which we say here, is that we would have life, hayim haochim, in the world to come. He says it's life which is not accompanied by death. And this is fundamentally different from the life that we describe or the life that we live today, the life in this world. It is more akin to ascribing to God the word life, where we say Elohim Haim, the living God. I don't need a pasuk to tell me that God is alive. But what Rambam says is, no, God is not alive like I'm alive, like you're alive, like a dog is alive, like a plant is alive. God is alive in a way that transcends our concept of life. For God, there is an existence that has no death associated with it. And what Rambam is saying to us here is the world to come, Olam Haba, is a life she'en mavet imahen, chayim she'en mavet imahen, a life that has no death associated with it. The tova and tov, good, she'en ema ra'a, and a good that has no bad associated with it. The world to come is no longer a world of contrasts, no longer a world of opposites, no longer the world we just read, Parashat Bereshit, where God creates a world which is made up of dualities, of opposites, up, down, dark, light, day, night, woman, man, earth, dry land, sea. Everything is in opposites in this world. Olam haba, says Rambam, we will transcend the world of opposites. We will transcend this world of conflict. We will enter into a world where we won't even be able to define, we can't even conceptualize the tov, the good that is in the world to come in Olam Haba, because it is a tov that is not offset by or in conflict with or under attack by anything that's evil. And this reward of the righteous, says Rambam, is that they will merit this pleasure and take part in this good. The retribution of the wicked is they will not merit this life. Rather, they will be cut off and they will die. This is a very important line. We've discussed this in the past. I just want to bring it again here, that in the last years of Rambam's life, and then right shortly after he passed away, there was a big conflict, a big controversy about him that was largely raised by the Chachmei Provence, the rabbis of southern France, who had a different view of the world from Rambam's. And they took him to task because they said Rambam doesn't believe in hell. If you remember, we've discussed this. Finally, Ramban came to Rambam's defense saying, look, you know what? Whatever his theology and his cosmology may or may not have been, all of us together don't have 1/10 of the knowledge of halacha that Rambam had. Anybody who's such a great Bal halacha, you cannot attack him. You cannot criticize him. He didn't say, yes, Rambam agrees with you. He said, you know what? That's not what it's all about. That's not the most important thing. The most important thing, and Rambam was the master of it, is how do we live in this world? The Rambam is saying here that the reward for righteousness is olam haba. And the punishment for wickedness is, what greater punishment can there be than to know that you're not getting olam haba? And he says it right here in black and white. So I believe that Rambam did not believe in a hell the way that it's depicted, certainly in Christian iconography. I believe that Rambam's view is that there is life in this world, and there is an opportunity for us to have life that transcends this world in Olam Haba. And Olam Haba is open to everybody. He said explicitly that non-Jews can also achieve Olam Haba through living righteously. But oy lanu if we fail to take advantage of the Torah. Because the Torah is our key to Olam Haba. And oy lanu if what's put in front of us we don't take advantage of. Whoever does not merit this life, says Rambam, is truly dead and will not live forever. They will be cut off in their wickedness and perish as a beast. This is the intent of the meaning of the term karet in the Torah. when it says tikaret, that soul will be tikaret, it will surely be cut off. The Torah Shabbat Peh explains that hikaret means to be cut off in this world, and tikaret to be cut off in the world to come. After these souls become separated from their bodies in this world, they will not merit the life in the world to come. Rather, even in the world to come, they will be cut off. In the world to come, Olam Haba, En Bo Guf Ugvia, there is no body, no physical form, only the souls of the righteous alone. Without a body, like the ministering angels. Since there is no physical form, there is no eating or drinking, nor any of the other bodily functions of this world, like sitting or standing, or sleeping, or death, or sadness, or laughter. Thus, the sages have declared, in the world to come there is, and this is a quote from Gemara Barachot, in the name of Rav. In the world to come, there is neither eating, drinking, nor sexual relations. Rather, the righteous will sit with their crowns on their heads and delight in the radiance of the divine presence, of the Shekhinah. From that statement, it is clear that there is no body, for there is no eating or drinking. Thus, the statement, the righteous sit, must be interpreted metaphorically. That is to say, the righteous exists there without work or labor. Similarly, the phrase, their crowns on their heads, is also a metaphor, implying that they will possess the knowledge that they grasped, which allowed them to merit life of the world to come, and that will be their crown. So I hope Bezrat Hashem will come to learn together Moreh Nevuchim, Rambam's Guide for the Perplexed, but he goes on in great detail about the definitions of many of the words that are used repeatedly in the Torah that have both physical and also metaphorical meanings. And the word sit, he says, like we say, Yoshev B'Seder Elyon, God sits there in the dwelling place of the Most High. He says, we don't imagine God as this very tall man sitting on a big chair. God does not sit. God does not stand. Rather, but sit means to be firmly resting in a place, to be established in a place. And so similarly, here he's saying that the those of us who learn Torah, Bezrat Hashem, including us here today, we will be established. And when we sit, meaning we are established and we don't have to get up again. We are there. We shall be established, Bezrat Hashem, in the world to come. And the crowns on our heads, again, metaphorically, as he says, that's the knowledge that we bring with us. Every word of Torah that we learn in this world is part of the key that gets us into the gate to Olam Haba. Right? It says in the Gemara that a person comes to Olam Haba with his Torah under his arm. With the people who learn Torah in this world, that's our ticket to the world to come. Some of us are going to get a ringside seat. Some of us are going to be up in standing room, but Bezrat Hashem will all be there. And so the objective of learning Torah in this world is to learn as much Torah as we can, while we can, to get us as close as possible to the front row, to be able to be close to the Or HaShechina, to the light of the Shechina. And I just want to add my own little interpretation that, when a crown is on a person's head, maybe you can feel it, but you don't see it. We don't see the hats that are on our heads, but everybody else sees them. So when I think of this image of the Torah sages and those who are learned in Torah sitting in Olam Haba with their crowns on their heads, I think of it as saying like, I want to know, I didn't have a chance to learn all the halachas of Shabbat, but I see the crown of Shabbat on the head of that person over there. I'm going to go ask them and have them explain to me their Torah. So, I kind of imagine Olam Haba as a great meeting place where we share our wisdom forever and we get to bask in one another's wisdom. And halavai, we should live that way today while we can in this world in order to build up and strengthen Klal Yisrael, because our unity is and always has been and always shall be the most important thing. Similarly, use of this metaphor was employed by Shlomo, in the crown that his mother crowned him with, right? Go out, daughters of Zion, and look upon King Shlomo and the crown that his mother placed on his head. This does not refer to a physical crown, but rather eternal joy. As it says in Isaiah, eternal joy will be upon their heads. Joy is not a physical entity which can rest on someone's head. Similarly, the expression crown, when used by Chazal, refers to knowledge. And remember, for Rambam, knowledge is what gets us to Olam Haba. It is not sitting and meditating and contemplating. It is not going off into a mountain somewhere and withdrawing from the world. It is an exercise of the intellect, which is a unique gift that God gave us to understand God and God's world. And significantly, and I hope as I say, we will come to learn the Moreh together. But at the very beginning of Moreh Nevuchim, Rambam makes what many people consider a startling statement. He says, why, and we just read Pasha Bereshit, he says, why does the Torah begin with Bereshit, bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz? Why doesn't it start with some great cosmology? God is like this, and God is like that, and God is. Because, says Rambam, we are given an intellect, and we are given a spiritual side. And the spiritual side can only grow to the extent that our intellect is properly exercised. Says Rambam, the reason the Torah begins with the creation of the physical world is because our path, our derech of knowledge that will lead us, B'ezrat Hashem, to Olam Haba, to knowledge of God, begins with the study of the physical world. We are not fit and not designed to learn spirituality, cosmology, theology, until we have mastered the physical sciences, until we have learned how the physical world operates. Says Rambam, that's why Torah begins with the creation of the world. It's a pretty startling statement. But you think about it, it's consistent with everything that we've been reading so far. And we must understand with our God-given intellect the world in which we live. Remember, we said this way back at the beginning of Sefer Madad, the beginning of Hilchot Yesodei Torah, that the evidence of our senses, the evidence and the understanding of our intellect are true, and they have meaning. Right? They're not true unexamined. Right? In Sefer Kuzari, Rabbi Yehuda Levi says, if we look and just take the pure evidence of our senses as the truth, we go astray. And the example that he brings is we look at the sun and we say, oh, there's a big flat disk in this. Our eye perceives. The eye, says Yehuda Levi. And the mind understands that the bodies that are floating up in the sky, they're not flat. A flat screen. And that the sun is not a flat disk like a coin. Rather, it's a sphere. And so the evidence of our senses, when analyzed through our intellect and through reason, lead us, says Rambam, to the threshold of the ability to actually begin to understand God. What is meant by the expression that they delight in the body? The term soul, when used in this context, does not refer to the soul which needs the body, but rather to tzorat hanefesh, the form of the soul, which is hadat. Hadea, shehi hadea, which is knowledge, which the soul comprehends according to its own power. Similarly, it comprehends abstract concepts and other matters. This is that form described the Torah. And this is the soul referred to. This is the reward above which. Hi, are we here? Hello. Hi, do you hear me? Wave if you hear me. Okay, sorry, I don't know what happened. I just dropped off and I came back. I'm back. This life not accompanied by death and the knowledge of the Shekhinah. This is the reward above which there is no higher reward. The good beyond which there can be no other good. This was the good that was desired by all of the Nevi'im, all the prophets. Now, Rambam's going to take us by the hand and lead us through text. And I don't want to, there's much to learn from looking at all the texts that he quotes. I don't want to dwell on it, but I want to give us a flavor of it. How many metaphorical terms have been used to refer to the world to come? Har Hashem, the mountain of God. Makom HaKodesh, this holy place. Derech HaKodesh, the holy path. The courtyards of God, the pleasantness of God, the tent of God, the palace of God, the house of God, the gate of God. The sages refer to this good, which is prepared for the righteous, with the metaphor of a feast. In general, it is referred to with the term Olam Haba, the worlds to come. Retribution, beyond which there can be no greater retribution, is that the soul will be cut off and will not merit this life. As it says, Tikaret hanefesh hahi avona ba. This soul shall surely be cut off. The soul's sin shall remain upon the soul. This refers to the obliteration of the soul, which was referred to by the prophets as the pit of destruction, Be'er Shachat. Right? All synonyms for nullification and destruction are used to refer to it, for that is the ultimate nullification, after which there is no renewal, the ultimate loss which can never be recovered. One might think lightly of the good of the world to come, imagining that the reward for the mitzvot and for a person following the paths of truth is solely for him to eat and drink good foods and have intercourse with beautiful forms and wear garments of linen and lace and dwell in ivory palaces and use utensils of gold and silver or other similar ideas, as conceived by the foolish, decadent Arabs who are flooded with lewdness. In contrast, he's talking about the society in which he lives. In contrast, the sages and men of knowledge know that these matters are vain and empty things, without purpose. They're only considered of great benefit to us in this world because we possess a body and a physical form. All these matters are the needs of the body. The soul only desires them and lusts for them because of the needs of the body, so that its desires will be fulfilled and its health maintained. In a situation where there is no body, all these matters will be nullified. Now, let's focus on this for a second, Rechavia, because Rambam told us much earlier that if we follow the right path and if we do the mitzvot with the right kavanah and if we do what God expects of us, that we will be freed from suffering, that God will give us sufficient food to sustain us, will give us shelter from the elements, will give us clothing, will give us health for ourselves and for our families and for our children, and will give us peace for our nation, so that we may what? Continue in our study of Torah. And so on the one hand, it's very easy for us to say, well, God wants me to continue to, I went to shul this morning, I davened up a storm, I put on 2 pairs of tefillin. I deserve a good breakfast. God's given me a good breakfast here. I got it great. Baruch Hashem, I got a great cup of coffee this morning. And it's all because I did all those mitzvahs this morning. And the day's not even started. It's only 10:30. Whoa, I got the whole rest of the day to do more mitzvahs. Boy, I'm going to get a really nice car out of this. So all of this is what Rambam refers to as doing mitzvot shelo lishma, not for their own sake. I'm doing mitzvot because God is going to reward me. And how easily do we all slip from moment to moment, day to day, into the same notion that when we pray for health, when we pray for safety, when we pray for panasa. All those things are important. But Rambam says everything that we do has to be not in order to receive the immediate benefit, but all of our immediate benefits are for a greater purpose. And so Rambam, and he's not the only one, it says, when we eat food, we shouldn't be thinking of, wow, this is a really great meal. Thank you, God, for the great meal. Yes, we should thank God for the great meal. But we should also be aware, why am I eating? I'm eating to fuel my body, to keep my mind working so that I can go back to learning Torah. And that's just one small example. But it's very easy for us, especially, unfortunately, at difficult times, such as times we're living through now, it's difficult for us to see beyond our own immediate needs, our own immediate problems, our own immediate fears, or God forbid, our own immediate tragedies. So I want to offer us a prayer for strength to be mechazek ourselves, because our job, to the extent that God keeps us safe, is for us to be mechazek other people who need it more than we do. There is no way in this world to grasp or to comprehend the ultimate good which the soul will experience in the world to come. We only know bodily good, and that's what we desire. That ultimate good is overwhelmingly great and cannot be compared to the good of this world, except in a metaphoric sense. In truth, there is no way to compare the good of the soul in the world to come to the bodily goods of this world. That good is infinitely great, with no comparison or likeness. As David HaMelech says, Ma rav tuvcha asher safanta lire'echa. How great is the good that you have hidden for those who fear you. So again, as we said in the first paragraph of this parak, that Rambam is saying, we enter into a world where duality ceases to exist. And we cannot comprehend of a world which is not a world of duality, because the world of duality is the world in which we live. In the most immediate, we live in a world of waking and sleep. We live in a world of life and death, God forbid. And so we cannot conceive of a world which is only one way, which is, says Rambam, Olam Haba. And how much did David HaMelech desire the life of the world to come? As he says, sorry. Some of us say that every day. In the Sephardic Nosach, we say it every day of the year. Ashkenazim said it during this period of the Chagim. Had I not believed that I would see the goodness of God in the land of the living. The sages of previous generations informed us that people do not have the potential to appreciate the good of the world to come in a full sense, nor can anyone know the greatness and beauty and power except God alone. All of the beneficence which the prophets promised Israel in their visions are only physical concerns which Israel will appreciate in the Messianic age when dominion will return to Israel. However, the good of the life of the world to come has no comparison, no likeness, nor was it described by the prophets, lest with such description they diminish it. This was implied from Yeshayahu, who said, Ayin lo ra'ata Elokim zulatcha ya'aseh le'machakelo. No eye has ever seen it, God, except for you, what you will do for those who wait for you. That is the good which was not perceived even by the vision of the prophet and is perceived by God alone. This was created by God for those who wait for God. The sages declared that all the prophets only prophesied about Yemot HaMashiach. However, regarding the world to come, the eye has not seen except for you, God. Ain lo ra'ata Elokim zulatecha. No eye has seen it, God, except for you. The sages did not use the expression Olam Haba, the world to come, with the intention of implying that this does not exist at present, or that the present realm will be destroyed and then that realm will come into being. It's a very important definitional point that Rambam is making. Olam Haba doesn't mean this world will end in whatever, in an hour and a half or in 2,000 years or whenever it's supposed to come to an end, and then Olam Haba starts. No. Rather, Olam Haba, the world to come, exists. It is present right now. It is only called the world to come because that life comes to a person after the life of this world in which we exist as souls clothed in bodies. It is the realm of material existence that is presented to all people first. So we live in this world, as we said, a world of duality, of material existence, of both the combination and blending, but also the tension and the conflict between the soul and the body, between the spiritual and the physical, between the needs of eternity and the needs of the moment. Horat Shah, as it says in the Gemara. The need of the moment is I need to eat. The need of the moment is I need to sleep. I need to procreate. I need rest. I need entertainment. I need distraction. I need friendship. But the need of eternity is the need that my soul strives for and thirsts for. And the Bezrat Hashem, through learning Torah and doing mitzvot in this lifetime, we come, in Rambam's world, in Rambam's approach, we come to an intellectual approach, an intellectual appreciation and understanding, and finally to a kind of a mind meld, if you will, where our intellect is able to transcend the needs and the appetites of this world and connect to the divine intellect. And that, in Rambam's world, is our key to eternity. Chapter 9. Question arises. We're talking about reward and punishment. As explained, the reward for the mitzvot and the good which we merit when we observe the path of God as prescribed by the Torah is olam haba. And the retribution which is exacted from the wicked who abandon the path of righteousness prescribed by Torah is karet. If so, what is the meaning of statements throughout the entire Torah of if you observe the Torah's laws, you will acquire such and such, and if you do not observe the Torah's laws, such and such will happen to you? All of the benefits and difficulties that are promised are matters of this material world. Plenty versus famine, war or peace, sovereignty over other nations, or a humble, debased national standing, the settlement of the land of Israel or exile, success in our actions and in our deeds or loss, and all the other points mentioned in the covenant. In resolution of this question, it must be stated that all of those statements are true. And they have been realized, they've been actualized in the past, and they will be actualized in the future. When we fulfill all the mitzvot in the Torah, we acquire all the benefits of this world. Conversely, when we transgress them, the evils written in the Torah will occur. Nevertheless, those benefits are not the ultimate reward for the mitzvot, nor are those evils the ultimate retribution exacted from those who transgress the mitzvot. Rather, the resolution of this matter is as follows. God gave us the Torah, which is a tree of life. Whoever fulfills what's written in it and comprehends it with complete and proper knowledge will merit the life of Olam Haba, the world to come. A person merits a portion of the world to come according to the magnitude of their deeds and the extent of their knowledge. This is a very clear summation that Rambam is giving us now as we come down towards the end of the Sefer. We are promised by the Torah that if we fulfill it with joy and in good spirit, and meditate on its wisdom at all times, God will remove all obstacles which prevent us from fulfilling Torah. For example, God will remove sickness and war and famine and the like. And similarly, God will grant us all the good which will reinforce our performance of Torah, such as plenty, peace, abundance of silver and gold, in order that we not be involved throughout all our days in matters required by the body, but rather we sit unburdened and thus have the opportunity to study wisdom and perform mitzvot in order that we will merit the life of the world to come. This principle is expressed by the Torah, which promises us all the benefits of this world. Similarly, the Torah has informed us that if we consciously abandon the Torah and become obsessed with fleeting temporal vanities in a manner similar to that which we just read at the end of Zot HaBaracha, V'yishman Yishon V'yifat, and Jeshurun became fat and kicked, rebelled, then the true judge will remove from all the benefits of this world, will remove from us all the benefits of this world which reinforce this rebellion, will remove from those who abandon the Torah. God will bring upon them all the evils which prevent them from acquiring a portion in the world to come, so that they will be destroyed in their wickedness. I would say that this is a problematic passage. I will also say that if we look back to Tanakh, the history of our nation is that we come close to God and we prosper, then we drift away from God, and then we rebel against God, and then God abandons us, and we are left to our enemies, which at a certain point then we cry out to God, and we promise to come back, and God comes and rescues us, and we do come back, and we draw closer to God again, and we prosper. And we prosper and prosper until, as we read in Zot HaBaracha, we become fat. And when we become fat, we think that it's us that did it. When we become fat, we think, oh, I don't need anybody else. I don't need this. I don't need to spend all my time in shul. I don't need to spend all my money on giving charity. I need to pay that kind of money for Shmora Matzah? This is crazy. What a crazy religion this is. And so it goes. But it says that you will tachat asher lo avadta et Hashem v'avadta et oivecha asher yishalchenu Hashem bach. Because you didn't serve God with happiness and joy, you will serve your enemies, whom God sends against you. These blessings and curses can be interpreted as follows. If you serve God with happiness and observe God's ways, God will grant you these blessings and remove the curses from you in order that you may be free to gain wisdom and involve yourselves in Torah so that you will merit the life of the world to come. Good will be granted to you in a world that is entirely good, and you will live long in the world which is endlessly long. You will merit two worlds, a good life in this world, which in turn will bring you to the life of the world to come. For if a person will not acquire wisdom in this world and does not possess good deeds, with what will that person merit a portion in the world to come? As we just read in the book of Ecclesiastes, because there is no work and no accountability and no knowledge and no wisdom in the grave. Conversely, if you have abandoned God and become obsessed with food and drink and lewdness and the like, God will bring upon you all these curses and remove all blessing until you will conclude your days in confusion and fear. You will not have a free heart or complete body to fulfill the mitzvot in order that you forfeit the life of the world to come. Thus, you will forfeit two worlds. For when a person is occupied in this world with sickness and war and hunger, the person cannot involve themselves with either wisdom or mitzvot, which allow them to merit the life of the world to come. I admit that this is a very difficult passage for us to be reading today, but we go forward. For these reasons, all Israel, and in particular the prophets and Chazal, Nevi'im and Chazal, have yearned for the Messianic age so that they can rest from the oppression of Gentile kingdoms who do not allow them to occupy themselves with Torah and mitzvot properly. They will find rest and increase their knowledge in order to merit the world to come. Excuse me. In that era, Messianic era, knowledge, wisdom, and truth will become abundant. As it says, Ki mal'ah ha'aretz de'ah Hashem. That Yeshayahu says, the world will be full of the knowledge of God. And Prophet Jeremiah says, one will no longer teach his brother, nor man his colleague, for all will know me. I will take away the heart of stone from your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. These changes will come about because the king who will arise from the descendants of David HaMelech will be a greater master of knowledge than Solomon, and a great prophet, close to the level of Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our teacher. Therefore, this Mashiach will teach the entire nation and instruct them in the path of God. All the Gentile nations will come to hear this teacher. And nevertheless, the ultimate of all reward and the final good, which will have no end or decrease, is not the days of Mashiach, but rather the life of the world to come. Olam haba. In contrast, the Messianic age will be life within the context of this world, with the world following its natural pattern, except that sovereignty will return to Israel. The sages of previous generations have declared, Ein ben ha'olam hazeh limot ha'mashiach ella she'abud malchuyot bilvad. There is no difference between the present age and the days of Mashiach, except our emancipation from subjugation to Gentile kingdoms. I will not invite discussion about this line today, but it's something that when we, Bezrat Hashem, make our siyum, which we will do soon, we may want to talk about in great detail. There's a body of thought, of serious rabbinic thought, that says we are living now in the Messianic age because, Baruch Hashem, we have our own country. Having Medinat Israel means that there is no longer She'abud Hagoyim, She'abud Malchiot Hagoyim, that we are no longer universally subject to the rulers of other nations. Yes, many Jews, half of the Jewish people still live outside of the land of Israel, subject to other nations. And there are those who say that the very existence of the state of Israel now serves as protection for them, which we did not have for the last 2,000 years. Bezrat Hashem, we're about to finish up. One should not say, I will fulfill the mitzvot of the Torah and occupy myself in its wisdom in order to receive the blessings which are contained within it, or in order to merit the life of Olam Haba. Rather, or I will separate myself from the sins which the Torah warned against, so that I will be saved from all the curses contained in the Torah, or so that my soul will not be cut off from Olam Haba. It is not fitting to serve God in this manner. One whose service is motivated by these factors is considered one who serves out of fear. That person is not on the level of the prophets or of the wise. The only ones who serve God in this manner are common people, women, and minors. Now, Rambam catches a lot of grief over comments like this. But the fact is that Rambam understands that in his time, women were prohibited not only from learning Torah, they weren't taught to read and write. He says, these people, uneducated people, are trained to serve God out of fear until their knowledge increases and they serve out of love. I think it's very clear that Rambam understood that it's not that children, common people, and women in his society were not inherently inferior, but rather they were held in an inferior social position, which, had they been educated, or did when they were to become educated, they could have equal access to all of the intellectual, all the intellectual adventures, if you will, that the Torah opens to its greatest scholars. That all of them are capable of becoming great scholars. It's a question of societal structure. One who serves God out of love occupies oneself in the Torah and the mitzvot and walks in the path of wisdom for no ulterior motive, not because of fear that evil will occur or in order to acquire benefit, but one does what is true because it is true, and ultimately good will come of it. This is a very high level, which is not merited even to every wise person. It's the level of Avraham Avinu, who God described as the one who loves me. For Avraham's service was only motivated by love. God commands us to seek this rung of service. What is the proper degree of love? That a person should love God with a very great and exceeding love until one's soul is bound up in the love of God. Thus, one will always be obsessed with his love, as if one is lovesick. A lovesick person's thoughts are never diverted from the love of that other person, a man of a woman or a woman of a man. The man is always obsessed with her. When he sits down, when he gets up, when he eats and drinks, with an even greater love, the love for God should be implanted in the hearts of those who love God and are obsessed with God at all times, as we are commanded. This concept was implied by Shlomo Melech in Shir HaShirim, Yeholat Ahava Ane, because I am sick with love. The sages in the previous generations said one should say, I will study Torah, should one say, I will study Torah in order to become wealthy, in order to be called rabbi, in order to receive Olam Haba? The Torah teaches, no, if you observe my commandments to love God, implying that you should only do so out of love. The sages also say, desire his commandments greatly, which is from Psalms, meaning desire God's commandments and not the reward which comes from God's commandments. In a similar manner, the sages would command the more understanding and brilliant among their students in private, do not be like servants who serve their master for the sake of receiving a reward. Rather, since God is the master, it is fitting to serve God and serve God out of love. Anyone who occupies themselves with Torah in order to receive reward or to protect themselves from retribution is considered one who is not occupied for the sake of God. In contrast, one who occupies themselves with Torah not because of fear, not to receive reward, but rather because of one's love for God, for the Lord of the entire earth who commands it, is one who occupies themselves for God's sake. Nevertheless, Chazal have declared a person should always occupy themselves with Torah, even when it's not for the sake of God. Ki mitoch lo lishma ba lishma. For out of doing a service which is not for the proper sake, for its own sake, will come service that is intended for its own sake. Therefore, when one teaches, children and the uneducated, one should teach them to serve out of fear and in order to receive reward. As their knowledge grows and their wisdom increases, the secret should be revealed to them slowly, bit by bit. They should become accustomed to this concept gradually until they grasp it and know it and begin to serve God out of love. It is a well-known and clear matter. Okay. We are at the final paragraph of the 10th parak, the 10th chapter of the final book, Hilchot Teshuvah, of the first book, Sefer Madah, of Mishneh Torah. Bezrat Hashem, we will read this in person together next week, after our victory over our enemies and after peace returns to our land, and we will have we'll have a siyum. Pizza is on me. It is a well-known and clear matter that the love of God will not become attached within a person's heart until that person becomes obsessed with it at all times, as is fitting, leaving all things in the world except for this. This was implied by the commandment, Havta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha. One can only love God as an outgrowth of the knowledge with which one knows God. The nature of one's love depends on the nature of one's knowledge. A small amount of knowledge arouses lesser love. A greater amount of knowledge arouses greater love. Therefore, it is necessary for a person to seclude oneself in order to understand and conceive wisdom and concepts which make one's creator known to us, according to the potential which the individual possesses to understand and to comprehend. As we explained in Hilchot Teshuvah, when we said Hilchot Teshuvah, the second chapter, it is a mitzvah to love and to fear this glorious and awesome God. What is the path to loving God and fearing God? When a person meditates on God's great and wondrous deeds and creations, and from them appreciates God's wisdom, which has no bounds and no comparison, one will immediately be aroused to love and greatly desire to know God. When a person meditates on these matters and sees the wisdom of God in all the creations and works, one's love for God will increase. One's soul will thirst, one's flesh will desire to love God. Excuse me. Yes, and a quote in my footnote here from Sefer Yetzirah, which is a Kabbalistic work, which is not exactly the kind of text that Rambam would be teaching, but it says that the end is rooted in the beginning, and the beginning in the end. Thus, Rambam begins Sefer Madah, the first of the 14 books of Mishnah Torah, as, remember, the foundation of foundations. It's good for us to return and remind ourselves where we started. Yisod hayisodot ve'amud hachokma leda sheyesh sham matzui rishon vehu mamtzi kol nimtza v'chol hanimtzaim mishamayim va'aretz u'ma shebenehem lo nimtzau ela be'amitat ha'himatzao. Yisod hayisodot, the foundation of foundations, ve'amud hachokma, and the pillar of wisdom, leda, is to know that there is a Matzui Rishon, a primary being, a first cause, if you will, which brought all existence into being, and all the entities in the heavens and the earth and what is between came into existence only from the truth of the existence of this Matzui Rishon, this first cause. The first four words of Mishnah Torah, Yisod, Ha Yisodot, Ve Amud, Ha Chochma, begin with the letters Yud and He and Vav and He. Rambam opens his Sefer with the name of God. And as we have said a number of times, Rambam wrote, unlike his other works, Rambam wrote Mishnah Torah in Hebrew and was very careful in his choice of words, of language. And so he says that the foundation of foundations and the pillar of wisdom is Leda, Sheyesh Sham Matzur Rishon. Uses the verb Leda, not the verb Ledat. We read at the end of Sefer Devarim, Ata hore'eta Ledat, Ki Hashem Elokim. You were shown, Ledat. And since you were shown in order that you know. When we see something, we know it. God is something we can't see. And so we do not Ledat. We don't know God. We Leda. We come to know God. We seek to become intimate with God. We seek, as we read in Bereshit, in Parashat Bereshit, the Yeda Adam et Chava. Adam came to know in an intimate way. This Leda is to find out, is to discover, if you will. And so Rambam is saying that the pillar of wisdom, the foundation of all foundations, is this quest for knowledge, the seeking after knowledge. And so here we have finished this, Baruch Hashem, we finished this first Sefer of Mishnah Torah, saying that the foundation of foundations and the pillar of wisdom is to know, or to learn, to find out that there is a primary entity. And it ends here with this halacha that it is necessary for us, he says at the end, for a person to seclude oneself in order to understand. Liyahed atzmo, to seclude oneself, Lihavin, to understand, velahaskil, to know rationally, bechochmot utvunot ha-modi'im lo et kono. That it is necessary for a person to seclude oneself in order to understand and to conceive wisdom and concepts which make one's creator known to one according to the potential that each person has to understand and to comprehend. Barich Rachmana V'Saya. Blessed be the merciful one who grants assistance. Rambam puts a postscript saying, this concludes the first book, Sefer Hamada, the book of knowledge, with the help of the Almighty, the book containing 46 chapters, being Hilchot Yesodei Torah, 10 chapters, Hilchot Deot, 7 chapters, Hilchot Talmud Torah, 7 chapters, Hilchot Avodat Kochavim, 12 chapters, and Hilchot Teshuvah, which we just finished, Baruch Hashem, 10 chapters. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen, Amen. Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov. However, we have come a long way. We have managed a massive achievement. You should all congratulate yourselves. It's very difficult to comprehend the magnitude of what we've just accomplished over the last. It's taken us a couple of years of learning our way through this entire book. Bezrat Hashem, may it be God's will to keep us going, so that we may learn many more Masechtot, so that we can return to the same Sefer Madam multiple times, to its wisdom over and over and over again, but also so that we may take this as a springboard to move forward in our future learning, Bezrat Hashem, of Rambam and of all of Torah. We have a couple of minutes. Anybody want to discuss anything? Want to share anything? No? This is a very, very difficult time. And I want to give us all a bracha. I don't know, your whole situation, all of you on this call, how many of you have friends or family, loved ones, or acquaintances who may have already been affected by this terrible war, or who are in harm's way in some way. We, rightly or wrongly, I have the feeling, being here in Jerusalem, my wife and I made Aliyah 5 years ago, Baruch Hashem. And I always have the feeling, in 2021, I was sitting here at this very desk on a Zoom call with my partners back in the States, having our weekly meeting. And I heard a siren in the distance, and I heard a couple of explosions in the distance. And I said, I think there's something going on. And indeed, there was something going on. But 3 hours later, friends of ours had arranged, because it was also, if you remember, it was the Muslim month of Ramadan when the Gaza war of 2021 broke out. And friends of ours who work on coexistence had arranged a Ramadan fitr, a break fast, where our Muslim neighbors had arranged a kosher meal for their Jewish neighbors. And indeed, that it was supposed to be that evening, and indeed it happened. So with all the very worst that's going on around us, there is also the very best that's accessible to us. We have the very best within us, and I want to encourage us all to seek the very best in one another, because the default in this world, unfortunately, and it's something that I struggle with, because I don't want to believe it, but the longer I live, the more I see it, the more I'm forced to acknowledge. As the Baal HaTanya says, the default setting of this world is evil. Baal HaTanya says there's no such thing as parv, ethically, morally. Every action that we do has an effect, either for good or, God forbid, for evil. Every action that we choose not to take, every time we choose not to get involved, everything that we do, every thought, or every failure to act has a moral resonance in the universe. And so I want to encourage us to seek the best within ourselves, especially at difficult times, and to seek the best in other people, because it is there in very many people. Many people at times like these are too afraid to show the best within themselves or to seek the best in others, whether it's our fellow Jews who we feel estranged from because they wear a different kippah from the one we're wearing, or they're not wearing a kippah at all, or who knows what. Their national background is different. We know them to be politically to this side or to that side or no side or whatever side. But unity is the most important thing. And unity among Klal Yisrael is the most important thing. And unfortunately, it had to come to this for us to start to realize that. So my bracha for us all is that ve'ahavta l're'acha kamocha, which, as Rambam explains, it doesn't mean that I have to want to invite you to my birthday party and I don't have to want to marry into your family. But I do have to respect you and protect you. And I do have to respect your honor and protect your honor, your safety, your well-being. And whenever any member of the Jewish people is under attack, all of us are under attack. And unfortunately, this has been our history. So let us pray that this period of history can come to an end. And if it means Yemot HaMashiach, then let it be. Because there's a kind of a joke, but I think there's a lot of truth in it, that people pray for Mashiach all day long, but they really don't want Mashiach to come, because look at how it would upend our lives. Look at what we would have to do and what we'd have to deal with if Mashiach actually came. We'd have to all get along with each other. Can we handle that? Bezrat Hashem. I want to thank you all. Bezrat Hashem, I look forward to a big pizza party with everybody. And I want to thank Raya and Mordechai for the amazing job of hosting this online, recording this. I want to thank Rabbis Goldberg and Diamond of Chabad and Rechavia for making this whole program possible, and for all the other amazing work they do on behalf of Klal Yisrael. And I want to thank all of you for coming to learn Torah together today and making it possible for me to continue my own learning of Torah. So I wish us all a Chodesh Tov, Shavua Tov, Besorot Tovot. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.